This video today is sponsored by Ridge.com/RTU. Now, what is Ridge? They actually make these awesome, super minimalist wallets that are RFID blocking, and they literally hold everything that you need without making a big bulge in your pocket, and I absolutely love that. Now, if you're looking for something with a bit of a different flavor, they have a dozen different styles to choose from, but Ridge doesn't stop there. They also have phone cases, battery banks, durable charging cables, and they even have backpacks and knives that you could choose from over on Ridge.com. If you're interested in making the smart choice and picking up a Ridge wallet for yourself, go to Ridge.com/RTU and use code RTU to get 10% off your first order with free shipping worldwide. You want another horror stories video? I got another horror stories video for you. Why I never talked about my escapades working in retail before in a video is beyond me. This may be my most epic horror stories video to date. Let's get into it. Skip it up and that up. So for those of you who don't know, I worked in retail on and off for many, many years. And for those of you who have never worked in retail, I will tell you this. It is a very, very stressful and interesting career path to take. And for those of you who still work in retail, I salute you because it's one hell of a job to do and it can be very stressful. It can actually be fun too. I had many fun times working in retail, but there are other times that, man, oh man, I wanted to lose my mind. When you work with the public on a daily basis, you realize how animal-like the human species truly is. And man, oh man, when you catch people when they're in a bad mood, it can ruin your entire day. And sometimes your coworkers can ruin your day too. Speaking of which, let's get into my first story when I was 16 years old. Now at the time, I was a junior in high school. I turned 16 and my parents said to me, "You need to get a job. You need to learn what it's like to work. You need to learn what it's like to make your own money. You need to learn what it's like to have more responsibility. So we want you to find a job." And they kept hounding me, which they were right. You know, you should teach your kids young to build character and become more responsible, so on and so forth. So I'm going to do the same with my kids. When they turn 16, their asses need to find some kind of work so they can learn how to make a buck. So I actually went to ask friends who was hiring. It was different looking for a job back then. Now, even if you're looking for a job at Taco Bell, you could just go online. But back then, even if you were looking for something part-time as a kid in high school, you had to pound the pavement or ask friends. And my friend Tim was like, "Hey, Rich, I have a job and I could get you a job too. I guarantee you they'll hire you." "Okay, cool, Tim. What kind of job is it?" "It's at an arts and crafts store." "Ah, oh boy, I can't wait to work there." I really didn't want to work there, but my parents were hounding me. They were up my ass, and I was like, "Fine, Tim, ask them for me, and I'll fill out an application." And of course, I did get the job. God, I remember the smell of the store. If you've ever been to an arts and crafts store, like you smell all the fake scents they have, the candles they have, the floral arrangements, and it just all hits you at once. They have like cinnamon smells and potpourris, and it's just like all attacking you. I'm getting the same headache I used to get when I worked there, just thinking about it now. It was such an overpowering odor working at this arts and crafts store. Well, anyway, I got the job, and what I found out was that my friend Tim also had his brother working there. And his brother's name was John. Now, John was an interesting character. So there was a stock room at this arts and crafts store, and it was Tim's job to introduce me to all the different aspects of the store and talk to the different employees. And he introduced me to his brother that worked in the stock room. He was a stock guy there, a warehouse guy, I should say. And Tim was like, "Hey, John, this is my friend Rich. He just got hired." Now, most people would just be like, "Hey, Rich, my name's John. How are you?" Not John, though. What John did is he approached me and introduced himself like this. "What's your name again? What's your name?" And I was like, "My name's Rich." He's like, No, I'm not going to call you Rich. I'm going to call you Dick." And I just looked at him and I was like, okay, I don't give a crap. You want to call me Dick? That's fine. Call me Dick. He continues on and goes, even better. Even better. I'm going to call you Dickers. You are Dickers! And I'm looking at the guy and I'm like, okay, he's out of his mind. What the hell is wrong with this guy? And he proceeds to go, Dicks! Dicks! Looking around, screaming in the warehouse. People, they had to have heard in the store. And then as he's sitting there calling me Dickers, screaming Dickers and Dick, he proceeds to pretend to be intimate with a box. Now you would think someone who was joking would do that for about 10 seconds. John went on to do it for about 30 seconds. Passionately. Intense. Thrusting of a box. Now, working at this arts and crafts store, I don't think anyone there actually liked the job. It was terrible. I had two different managers there. There was the store manager. She was the head honcho. Her name was Colleen. She had hair from 1984, and she was a chain smoker. Whenever she brought you in the office, I probably smoked about 10 packs of cigarettes just being in her office. It was 1998, and back then people did smoke in their offices. Whether she was allowed to or not, I don't know, but she did. There was another guy named Bob. Bob was a very unhappy man. Bob had the physique. It was very strange. His entire body was thin, but he had a bowling ball for a gut, and he had long hair that was balding that it was completely unkempt. And Bob was a very angry guy. I remember one time, because I couldn't get my work done, because I didn't really give a crap about the job, let's keep it real, and also working with my friend John, who gave me the nickname Dickers, made it very tough to get anything done. I remember Bob going up to me and saying, if you don't get what I told you to get done, I'm going to drag you out of the store with my bare hands and never let you get back in again. That was Bob. Bob was a very sad, angry man. Well, anyway, working this job was absolutely terrible, and one of the tasks they wanted us to do, whether you were in the warehouse or front of the store, just helping customers, is they wanted you to clean the bathrooms. Now, okay, there's many people that have to clean bathrooms at retail stores, but there was a surprising catch to cleaning bathrooms at this arts and crafts store. They didn't have any gloves, and they still wanted you to clean. I remember going to them and saying, where are the gloves if you want me to clean the bathroom? And they go, we don't have gloves. You'll be all right. I'll be all right. You want me to touch clean toilets with fecal matter and urine and Lord knows what else without gloves? Yes, we do. You have to, or you won't have a job. So that was not happening. So what I would do is take basically an entire roll of paper towels. So there was a mile between my hands and contact of any of the disgusting bathrooms. And at best, maybe I would wipe the toilet seat. And even then, like I said, there's the toilet seat. Here's my hand, paper towels in between. Yeah, job was terrible. But that wasn't the worst part of it, though. Let's get back to Tim's brother, John, our friend John. Well, John used to really like getting the carts that were scattered around the parking lot at this arts and crafts store. But here is the thing. It's an arts and crafts store, and most of the time people really didn't use carts unless they got a ton of stuff. Most of the times they would just have a bag or two and wouldn't even need the carts. But John really enjoyed to go outside for very long periods of time and get the carts. But what John was really doing was smoking bowls of angel dust. And when John came back in, John would be stoned out of his mind. It was like he turned into the Incredible Hulk. John would walk outside, be normal, and then John would come back in and be, where's Dickers? Where's Dick? Literally, it looked like his muscles were going to rip through his shirt. Well, what John would do after he came back in from getting the carts was he would like to bother the living crap out of me. Other people too, but especially me. And one of the things that John really enjoyed to do was grab a paddle. They had wooden paddles at this arts and crafts store and smack me on the ass with them. Now, getting hit with a wooden paddle to begin with is a pretty terrible thing. It hurts, they're hard. But a normal wooden paddle at least when it's a solid one, there's the cushion of air that is sandwiched between the paddle and your ass when it hits, so it'll still hurt, but that cushion of air softens the blow slightly. These were arts and crafts paddles, and they had designs etched throughout them. So they had holes, basically, that didn't allow for there to be a cushion of air, which I guess if you want an ornate paddle is super cool. But when it's being used to be slapped against your ass, it makes it 10 times more painful. And when John, after he was lit up on a bowl of dust, chased after you with one of these paddles, he was going for the gold and hitting your ass as hard as possible. So when John would come back in, high out of his mind, the first thing he would do is be like, "Where's Dix?" And he would be holding a paddle and literally chasing me throughout the store, and I would have to run for my life to not get my ass destroyed by a paddle with holes in it. This happened almost every day. And yes, I did complain about it, and no one cared. So this happened on a daily basis. I was sick of the job. I was maybe working 10 to 15 hours a week anyway, and they were terrible 10 to 15 hours a week. It felt like time was going in reverse when I was there. And due to the fact that I didn't clean the bathrooms and I never got anything done for obvious reasons, and again, I also didn't care about the job, they eventually let me go. I remember going into Colleen's office, which was full of smoke, and her saying, "You haven't cleaned the bathrooms. Those bathrooms needed to be cleaned. They haven't been cleaned properly for weeks. Again, they wanted me to clean them without gloves, so we're going to let you go." And thankfully, because I no longer worked there, my ass wounds healed from not having to deal with John anymore and getting slapped with a paddle. But I still needed to get myself a job, and the next job I got was working at a now defunct store called Filene's. Now, Filene's was a terrible job, but at the same time, it wasn't a terrible job. There was many unhappy managers there, but I worked with some fun co-workers, and there was a bunch of gorgeous women that worked there, and that made it a much more enjoyable place to be, even if the management sucked. Now, what was interesting about Filene's is that I'm going to talk about another job I had after, which that actually job I loved. The only reason I quit there is because it closed down. But Filene's was a job that I had that I went back to after that job closed down because they gave me flexible hours and I was in college. I actually started the job as a senior in high school and kept Filene's through college. And the key reason why is that I was on call there. And the reason why I'm using air quotes again is because they always had hours. And it was nice because I could work whenever the hell I wanted to. I actually worked there quite a bit, but I would call this woman named Joan. She was an older British woman and I would call her up and, "Hello, lovey, how many hours you looking for this week?" And either I would call her up or go into the office to get hours, and she always had times for me to work. I mean, I could literally have worked there somewhat, like during the holiday season, I would work 30 or 40 hours, or if I had, finals coming up for school or something like that, I would work 5 or 10 hours or not work at all. It was nice because it was very flexible. But again, the management there, at least in certain sections, was pretty terrible. And it was a fun place to work, but it wasn't at the same time. It was really rough sometimes. And later on, towards the end of my career at Filene's, they kept on putting me in different sections. Due to my ignorance of being a late teen, they put me in the hosiery section, which is like women's pantyhose and stuff like that. And I thought honest to God, thought they wanted me in the lingerie section. And I went into that section and I was behind the register. So that's where I thought they wanted me. I honestly thought that. And I remember all the women looking at me like, "Why is there a dude working in lingerie? Is he a creeper? Why is he working in lingerie? What's going on? What's this dude up to?" And I remember every woman giving me that eye. And all of a sudden, a manager comes over and says to me, "Why are you here?" And I go to her, "Because you guys wanted me in hosiery, right?" They're like, "Hosiery is like pantyhose and socks, not lingerie. We don't want a guy in women's lingerie. Hosiery's on the other side of the store." And I'm like, I was so embarrassed. I was like, oh man. But that's the thing though. It was that ship there was run It wasn't that run that tight. But anyway, moving on. They actually used to put me towards the end of my career there. They actually used to put me in a section, the shoe section, men's shoes. Now that was a commission section. I didn't make commission. I was just an hourly employee, but they only had 1 or 2 guys running the ship in the shoe section. And, you know, they had their own rhythm going. They actually made decent money selling shoes there. But when they had me fill in, if one of them called in sick or whatever the scheduling was messed up, I would be in the shoe section, and I knew nothing about any of the shoes. And the back room there was a complete disaster. There were shoes stacked to the ceiling. I had no idea where anything is. It was messy. It was disorganized. It used to drive me and it used to piss me off when they worked there. And I used to feel bad I couldn't get the shoes for people. I mean, not that I was a model employee there, but I lasted there for 3+ years. I couldn't have been that terrible. And every time they put me in the shoe section, I was a bump on a log because I just didn't know what to do, and the shoe section was a complete disaster. So right before I went on it was a vacation, and actually wasn't a vacation too. I was going to take acting classes at UCLA through a program called TVI Studios. The day before I worked in the shoe section again, and there was a whole bunch of people there, and I was swamped, and I already didn't know what the hell I was doing or how to find the shoes, and the shoe room was a disaster where they had all the stock. And there was this woman there who was being she was being a bitch. That's the only way I could describe her. And I'm helping all these other peoples that were there before her, and she was like, "Excuse me, sir, I need help." And I'm like, "Ma'am, they were here first. I'll help them, then I'll get to you." And she goes to me again when I come back out. And I am scattered all over with a whole bunch of people. "Excuse me, I haven't even been helped here. I haven't even asked you a question yet." I'm like, "Ma'am, there's other people here first." Still holding my cool. Had to go back again. The shoe didn't fit for this one person or whatever the case may be. I come back out again. She's like, "This is ridiculous. I've been here forever." And I'm like, "Listen, lady, you're not the only person here. There are other people here before you. Wait your damn turn. If you don't want to wait, you could leave." Guess I probably shouldn't have said that last part, but I did. And she walked off in a huff. And then she turns around and says to me, "What's your name?" And I said to her, "My goddamn name is Fred. Why, you're going to tell management about me?" And then she walked off in a huff fast. And that was the last I saw of her. Then I went to California for 2.5 to 3 weeks. Now, like I said, even though I basically sometimes worked there full time, especially during the summer, I was on call. And there was a sweet older British woman named Joan that I would always speak to. And Joan, I would call her or walk into Filene's once a week into the back offices, and she'd be like, "Oh, hello, lovey, come on back, we got plenty of hours for you." And that was the routine. I would either call, and she'd be like, "Hello, lovey, on the phone, I got hours for you as well." And that would be, I'd find my hours, and then I'd go and work. When I got back from California, I go to see Joan. I actually walked into the office this time to get hours. And I wasn't greeted with the normal Joan. Joan, "Oh, hello, lovey, how are you?" She was more like, "Hello, lovey, you have to go speak to Peter. He wants to have a talk with you before we give you hours." Now, Peter, the best way I could describe Peter, he was the store manager there, or at least the assistant store manager. He was way up. He looked like the Penguin from Batman Returns. He had the same physique. He looked like basically a walking dumpling. Look, I know I'm a fat dude. I know I'm still fat, but he had like a weird shape for even a fat guy. And Peter actually kind of sounded like this. That's exactly how he sounded. His voice was like it was not high pitched, but he sounded very nasally, and he was a very interesting, very animated guy. Tried really too hard to be professional. And he was just very fake. Never liked him. But anyway, I had to go see Peter. He was one of the head honchos there. And I sat down, and Peter goes to me, "Reg, can we have a discussion for a second? You were working in the shoe section right before you left for your little vacation, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, why?" It's like, "Well, there was a secret shopper, and she said she received terrible customer service and said you were extremely rude and said that your name is Fred. Do you remember this?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I had a feeling too. Remember after she walked away, I'm like, "I bet you she is a secret shopper." And Peter said to me, "Well, we can't have this here, Rich. I got to let you go." And I was fired from Filene's by a secret shopper. I didn't miss that job, though. I missed the gorgeous women that were there, but I didn't miss the job. Now, a job that I truly did enjoy, I actually worked there for over 3 years, was I worked at a restaurant. And at first I thought I was going to hate the job, but it ended up being a blast. I made a bunch of friends there. It actually made decent money there. And it had good hours while I was at school. So I stayed there for a while until things with school got too hectic. Then I quit there. But when you work with hungry people, working with customers to begin with can be tough. But when people have low blood sugar or they just have psychological disorders, it can get even more interesting. So it was funny because I used to work the front counter as a host. Then I worked at takeout. Then I finally became a server there, which I sucked at. I should have just stayed doing takeout and being a host, but that's a different story. I was too spazzy to be a server. But anyway, it was a busy Saturday, and it was just swamp there, like with the front where the host's desk is. You couldn't even walk through it. Like even functioning and doing your job was near impossible. But anyway, I got this table, and it was like this biker dude and this really old, not older, but she looked like a life had gotten to her woman, probably in her late 40s, maybe early 50s. And I go take their order. Now, when you take an order at a restaurant, you're standing at the table and you're looking down at the people. Hey, ma'am, what would you like to drink? Hey, sir, what would you like to drink? What would you like? Would you like an appetizer? What would you like, ma'am? What would you like, sir? Switched up what gender was on each side, but you get my point. So I have this table with this biker dude and this older woman. I go take their order. I get an appetizer, and I go in the back, put the ticket in, thinking all is well. Well, apparently all wasn't well. I go in the back, and this guy I work with named Rich, not me, was like, dude, your table's pissed. So I'm like, okay, what happened? Did I forget their drinks? I mean, they just got here. What the hell could be wrong? So I go out there, and this biker dude's standing up near the entrance/exit of this restaurant and going, let's go outside right now. Let's go outside. And I'm like, what the hell did I just miss? What just went over my head? Why does this guy want to fight me? And he continues on and goes and says, you were looking at my wife's breasts. One, ew. No, I would not be looking at your wife's breasts. It's just no, like, and I'm just sitting there just like in shock. I'm like, sir, what are you talking about? Like, I honestly was just taking your order. That's it. That's all that I was doing. And I maybe I looked down because I was getting an order. I was talking calm like this. He's like, bullshit. I saw you. Don't you lie to me. Let's go right now. And then my manager came out, and the guy was just like, I'm out of here. This is ridiculous. He was looking at my wife. That's disgusting. Now, keep in mind, this woman stood up. And I'll let you know right now, she didn't have any cleavage or anything to look at because her boobs went to the floor. I didn't look at her. I wouldn't want to look at her. I'd rather bang my head against concrete than even think of what this woman may look like naked. But this man, because he's insecure, thought that I was looking at his wife, who definitely could have been my mother. Because keep in mind, this is almost 20 years ago. Yeah. Now, I didn't even get in trouble for that because the circumstances, it was obvious that I didn't do anything wrong. How could you, I could see if I said something to her, or like, I went up and down like that or something like that. Like, how would you even know where my eyes were focused? I had to look at her to get her order. And it's funny, I remember my boss just laughing it off because it was just absolutely ridiculous. And again, she didn't look like she could be my mother. I got to keep it real. She looked like she could have been my grandmother. So I assure you that was not my intention. But this guy apparently, I'm sure she dealt with that everywhere she went. And I'm sure that he's also tried to be physical with other men because he just thinks everyone's checking out his gorgeous wife. That's working in retail. And that's working in a restaurant. You think that story's bad? Go talk to a bartender. I'm sure they have worse. Now, another job I worked at for a while before I started doing stuff with computers and things like that as a technician and IT stuff is I worked at a furniture store. And let me tell you something. In the beginning, the money there was insane. I could not believe I was making the money that I was making selling furniture, but I was. And it worked because they didn't have a lot of employees. They had just the right amount. And you would always get what they were called was ups. And those ups, people, you would shop with them. You'd pick out the right furniture for them. And some of those tickets were big tickets. And some of those paychecks were big paychecks. But then the upper management, way up, people that owned the company, thought it was a brilliant idea to flood the floor with new employees. And you would go from getting 10 ups a day, 10 customers a day, to like 1. And then they said to you, oh yeah, you want to make up for that? Here, call a bunch of old phone numbers from people who bought maybe a pillow 20 years ago and see if they want to buy new stuff. It's up to you to get people to walk through the door. So you would go from making almost like a good salary each year to making a couple $100 a week because they wanted to make sure they maximized each customer that walked in the door and your paycheck be damned. But one of the things I started doing was working with management there to, when I got a customer to come through the door, or if I had a customer walk in, it was my turn to take the customer, is I would not let them leave until they got the price they wanted. And that worked quite well for quite a while. Someone wanted a discount of 10% off, they would get it. They wanted 15, they would get it. Sometimes even more to keep that sale. And some of these sales were big sales. And that worked for a while. That brought my numbers back up. But things got complicated again because upper management, the people who own this furniture company, which is a chain, decided that they wanted to have once a year sales basically every day or a couple times a week, to not exaggerate. So what they wanted you to do is never give anybody any kind of discount except for these 2 or 3 sales days a week. And when people walked in the door, pretend this Splatterhouse Hue card is a flyer, and they would be like, hey, you came in on the best day ever. Today is the only day this year we're having this sale. You're going to get discounts you can never get any other time of the year, except for tomorrow and the day after and the day after that. So we would then have people walk in, be like, hey, I want to buy $20,000 worth of furniture. Can you cut me a deal on it? And we used to say yes. Now we couldn't say yes. We had to say no because of the fact that we needed to make them feel like they had to come to these must-have sales that happened basically every other damn day. So I used to be able to keep people in the door and get a sale by giving them a discount. And the margins on this stuff, there was still a ton of profit that the company was making. I was able to do that. Now I couldn't give anything because I had to have them come back for the must-have sale that happened every other day. And I started losing out on big tickets. I remember this time there was literally a $30,000 sale that they were like, can you do anything for me on this? And I had to tell, and I went to my manager and said, look, I know the rules now. They want people to come back only on these sales days and they don't want us to give discounts, but this is they will buy this stuff now if you give them some kind of percentage off. And my manager, he was a nice guy. He had to say no because that was the rules set by the owners of the company. We had to have them come back for these fake ass, dumb ass sales. And if someone walked out the door, they didn't care. And those people did walk out the door. And even though I got their contact information and called them back, they never came back. So I missed out on $30,000 due to some harebrained scheme by some idiots at the top. And it was at that point when that happened that the job was done to me. I ended up staying there for another year, but then I quit. It just was absolutely ridiculous. And there was no money to be made there anymore. And the company was going downhill. It was also a gross feeling too, where they wanted you to literally flat out lie to the customers. I understand sales, you're doing what you need to do to get a sale. And that's how, working in commission sales is. But to tell people this sale is only happening once a year, guys, it's never going to happen again. And it's going to happen in 24 hours from now again, or 48 hours from now. You just felt gross. I didn't like the feeling. I got sick of the job. The money wasn't there anymore. And when they made it that they forced people to come back on these sales days and played mind games with the customers, I was done and I was glad to leave there. I had a lot of fun there when I was there, but the job has changed and I'm glad I left. Now, the final retail job, it's actually the last job I had before I started doing ReviewTechUSA full time. They weren't retail jobs, but I worked for IBM. I did IT there. I was a technician there for a while. But when I got laid off from there in 2009, I had to find some kind of work. And the last job I had before I did ReviewTechUSA as my full-time gig was working as the front desk night manager at a gym. Horrible. Not the job itself. Well, no, the job itself actually was. First off, the workload that you had there, okay? You would think, oh, you're working at the front desk. What's the big deal? What's the big deal? No. I know they changed the system now, so it's automated, so it's much easier. But back then, the third shift at this gym, you would have a stack of paperwork this big. And you had to get it done. If you didn't get it done, you would have to punch out and work unpaid until the paperwork from the night shift was done. And it happened all the time because especially during the holiday season where a lot of people are signing up because they're, oh, new year, new resolution. So you get a whole bunch of gym signups. It was unbearable. I would be there for like 3 hours sometimes after my shift ended, working a night shift. So I was already off and it was hell. I used to wake up with panic in the middle, like mid panic attack, like shivering because of the stress level of this job. And I don't handle working a night shift well. But anyway, you'll meet some very egotistical people that come work out at a gym, especially when you work there. You see all kinds of people that walk in. And there was this one tall, goofy dude that would come in. And one time, I get a call from him. He worked out, he walked out. He was very loudmouth. He always wanted to make sure you knew he was around, one of those kind of dudes. And I was working the front, and the rule was, I didn't know this yet, but the rule was you are the front night desk manager. You don't leave the front. We need to make sure that nothing shady is going on. We need people to watch the cameras. We need people to, if there's any kind of issues at the front, if someone needs you to do something, tell them, no, you can't go. I didn't know that though. So this same goofy loudmouth dude calls up and goes, yeah, man, I left my water bottle there. I was wondering if you could just get it for me. And at the time, because I'm an idiot, I said, okay, yeah, sure. I didn't know yet. I didn't know the rules that I'm not allowed to leave. So I get busy too. I find out I can't leave the front desk. And I never find this guy's water bottle. Now, what's amazing about this water bottle is that it looked like a grown man's version of my 2-year-old son's sippy cup. Okay, and it looked like it came from a dollar store. So he comes in the next day or the next night, all pissy. And he looks at me and he's like, "Did you find it? Did you find it?" And I'm like, "Sir, I apologize. I didn't know the rules yet. My manager didn't want me to leave the front desk." He's like, "Oh, you're so full of crap." And then he walks off with his nerves. I guess he finds the water bottle. He's like, "Hey, look what I found. Look, I could do your job for you, jackass." Said that to me. Told my manager about it. Like, look, just ignore him. He's harmless. He's been here for years. Now, just keep in mind, it was like a cheap dollar store water bottle. And you would think, okay, I didn't find your water bottle, you dumbass. What's the big deal? He held a grudge for me every time he came in after that. I would greet him, say hello. He would mutter something under his breath. He's like, "Oh, look, there's a guy there who can't do his job." And he would just every time just talk crap every time he walked past me. I mean, I even remember one time he walked past me and goes, "Oh, hey, look, the rocket scientist is here working behind the desk again. How you doing there, genius?" And I'm like, and I wanted to say something. I was so tempted to start talking, but what am I going to do? Fight with the guy out in the parking lot and like get arrested over some moron for a job that I was probably going to be there for another few months anyway? But I almost forgot about this part. This gets even weirder. I don't remember the guy's name, but there was this really weird cleaning guy who used to come in. He worked there for years, came in at night, every night, and cleaned. And he had the worst wig on I've ever seen. I mean, think of Bobo from the Howard Stern show. He makes his wig look good. And he was a really, really weird dude. And he didn't have any teeth. And he was always very nice and normal to me, though. He was a nice guy to me, but there was just something off. Well, the last night I was there, after I put my 2 weeks in to finally take the plunge with YouTube, he all of a sudden, out of nowhere, and I've never had an issue with this guy, flipped out on me over there not being soap in the back bathroom. Keep in mind, soap wasn't my job, it was his job. And he gets up in my face and he was like, "You never did your job here. I can't believe you lasted here this long. What's wrong with you?" Again, keeping in mind this wasn't my job. And I was like, "Dude, I've never had an altercation with you before. I don't know why this is going on." Keep in mind, he's like this close to me. I said, "But back off." He's like, "I'm not backing off. I don't understand this. I'm tired of this." On my last night of work, I said, "Dude, back off." "No, I'm not backing off." And he got closer to me. And I admit it, I shoved him away. I said, "You back the hell off of me. I don't know what the hell your problem is, but get out of my face." What I found out later was that he thought I was a nice guy and he was sad I was leaving and he didn't know how to express his emotions. Retail. Yeah. And you know what, man? I got more stories too, but this video is going to end up being too long. All I could say is this. If you've worked in retail before or do work in retail, I have a lot of respect for you. It can be a lot of fun, but I know it can be very stressful because working with the public population can drive you insane. And if you do it for a living, I give you all the credit in the world. This is Rich of ReviewTechUSA signing out. Have a good one.